we should start from what is commonly stated regarding the performance of African economies over the last few years. You know that Africa is one of the fastest growing regions in the world. African economies have been growing over the last few years. And in most African countries, this has been attributed to a performance of the agricultural sector. And this is not without reason. As you know, agriculture is the dominant sector, and therefore it is a very key sector for transformation and growth agenda. You may have known about the Comprehensive Africa Agricultural Development Program, which is CAADP, the African framework for guiding agricultural development and transformation, which is being rolled out. As we speak now, 30 countries have signed their compacts. Member states are giving the agriculture sector the attention it deserves, because that is one of the things which we wanted to achieve through CAADP. Agriculture as a priority sector, but also demonstrated in terms of real ownership and commitment, for example, by allocating an increasing percentage of their national budget to agriculture. But this needs to be sustained. This is one part of the story. But on the other hand, Africa also has one of the largest hungry people in the whole world. The latest figures indicate that about 225 million people in Africa are malnourished or undernourished, and this is a quarter of the total population of Africa. So growth on the one hand, vulnerability to shocks, in particular to drought. On the other hand, you all remember what has happened recently in the Sahel and in the Horn of Africa region, affecting millions of people. So in terms of solution, yes, it is true that first and foremost, the problem of food insecurity should be addressed through addressing the production challenges, through increased productivity and so on. But this is not enough. The problem of access to food, the problem of affordability of food is very important by the majority of the people in a sustainable manner. Of course, in many instances, emergency responses have also been designed and implemented, but these are not really sustainable solutions. The sustainable solution, we believe, is through integrating production and growth strategies with deliberate social protection interventions. And we believe that this can be indeed achieved if and when at least the following takes place. Number one, there is a conviction and belief in ourselves that it is possible to eradicate hunger in Africa in a very near future. And in this high-level meeting, 2025 is being proposed as a target to achieve zero hunger in Africa. There should be a demonstrable exceptional leadership. I repeat this, exceptional leadership and concerted actions by all. That the principle of African ownership and African leadership, as well as forging effective partnerships, should be applied in practice. And we should avail ourselves of the immense opportunities for mutual learning from successful experiences, and we believe that there are a number of cases. We can mention the example of Brazil, the example of China, Vietnam, but also some of the successes that have been registered in Africa itself. So the outcome of this high-level meeting, the expected outcome, is consistent with the self-reliance agenda that we wish to advance in the context of Pan-Africanism and African Renaissance, and Agenda 2063 on agriculture and food security. You have all, I'm sure, are acquainted with what I'm talking about. This is the theme of the commemoration and celebration of the 50th anniversary of the OAU and AU. You will recall that the AU Assembly of Heads of State and Government have also proclaimed the year 2014, next year, as the AU Year of Agriculture and Food Security. And at the moment, we are making all the necessary preparations to implement that decision through lining up a number of exciting events and activities. The high-level meeting, which we are going to organize next week, will also contribute towards this preparatory work. So the high-level meeting itself, now the African Union Commission, as my colleague has introduced it, the FAO, the Lula Institute, and the host country, Ethiopia, have joined hands to organize this high-level forum to bring together African and international leaders with clear expectations, among which include to nurture and consolidate a buy-in to the goal of ending hunger by 2015 through renewed commitments to country-led processes and strategy, including renewed priorities and strategies for informing national and regional planning process for accelerated food and nutrition security in Africa. Renewed commitment to more pronounced, more visible, high-level partnership and rally behind the post-2015 end hunger goal, which will be agreed, we expect, in the roadmap that will be presented to the meeting, and also stimulate a buy-in to the revitalization of the African Food Security Solidarity Fund. The meeting is going to be a 2-day meeting on the 30th of June 2013, next Sunday, and the 1st of July 2013. Let me stop here. The venue, of course, is going to be at the AU Conference Center here. And Excellencies, the Minister and Dr. Traore, I'm sure will have more to say to complement what I have said. Thank you.
For Your Excellency, the State Minister, Dr. Abebe, it is a real pleasure to have you with us for this briefing. And I want also to welcome our colleague journalists for this opportunity. We hope that really after this briefing things will be more clear to most of our colleagues who are not directly involved in the process. Having said that, I'm not going to repeat what Dr. Abebe has said regarding CAADP, but I think I will try just to anticipate 2 or 3 things for our discussions so that people can be really informed about what is ongoing. The first thing is about CAADP. CAADP is really, when it was endorsed in 2003, as the long-term vision for Africa, the long-term framework for action. It was very clear in the mind of all the players that this is our main tool to implement the MDG 1, the Millennium Development Goal #1, which was about halving the number of hungry people by 2015. It is not about eradicating, it is about reducing the number of people suffering from hunger, 50% of them, to cut 50% on this number. This is the first thing. Second thing, 2 months ago when we were here at the AU for the 9th CAADP Partnership Platform meeting, it was established that 30 countries out of 54 have embarked in the process. This is, of course, very important. Second thing, which was mentioned, is that these countries are at different levels of implementation of the CAADP process. Some are just starting. Some others have gone through the entire process. And where people are really implementing the CAADP very effectively, we know that they have put in place mechanisms for inclusive participation of all stakeholders. They have succeeded also in achieving some quantified targets about the budget allocation, about the rate of growth, etc., etc. And I think Ethiopia, Your Excellency, I think you must be very proud of that. Ethiopia is one of the best examples of what can be done in the framework of CAADP in reducing the number of hungry people. Having said that, since last year, there is a move in the international community. People do not understand why should we try to reduce the number of hungry people. Hunger is not acceptable at all. And the objective should be to eradicate hunger, not to reduce the number of people suffering. It means that we have still 50% of the people who will keep suffering from the hunger issue when we have today in the world all the knowledge necessary, all the resources necessary to eradicate completely hunger. So this is very important. So when people ask, what is new in this high-level meeting? Are you going to replace CAADP by a new initiative? Are you going to compete with CAADP? The response is here. It is not about replacing CAADP. It is not about competing with CAADP. It is about complementing what CAADP is doing. CAADP is addressing one aspect out of 4 in food security. Food security has got 4 dimensions. The first dimension is to avail food, to produce food. This availability is what you can reach with the agricultural development. The second aspect, which is about accessing to food, is not about production. Today in our world, we produce more than needed to meet the need of all our population. But access has also some difficulties. You can have food in the market, but if you don't have money, you cannot access to this food. You can have food in the community, but for the most vulnerable people, those who do not have enough resources, enough money to afford to buy food, they are excluded from food security. The third dimension is about how you use the food, the utilization. This is about nutrition. Because one thing is to produce food, to have more or bigger amount of food. But this doesn't, mean that you are covering the needs of the consumers. Because you need to have not only the right amount of food, but also the right quality of food. The different nutrients that are required to meet the needs of people should be there. I give you one example. In different places, and today we were at the launching of the National Nutrition Program in Ethiopia. I was really very impressed by 2 examples. States like Tigray and Amhara, where the food production is relatively very good, they have the highest rate of malnutrition. It means what? That you can have food, but if you don't have the right food, the right diversity of food, the right quality of food, you cannot overcome malnutrition. So these 3 dimensions are very important. The last dimension, of course, is about the stability, the sustainability of that. It is not enough to have enough food for one season or to have enough food for a particular period of life, but you should ensure that this is stable all the time. I think this also, to me, is something very, very important, and we need to understand that. So the perception of CAADP is that it is an agricultural developmental program, a program to develop agriculture. So some of the players, those who are involved in nutrition, those who are involved in assisting vulnerable communities, do not feel part of this process. So by this initiative, we think that we will be able to bring all these people around the table and to have the necessary complementarities and the synergies with them. I think this also is important. To achieve the goal of eradication of hunger, of course, we need to ensure that all the players, be in the production side, be in the those who are active in the food access, in the nutrition side, that all work together in partnership, in a very close partnership. This is one of the initiatives of this high-level meeting, and we hope that it will be an opportunity for all these players, be at national level, be at international level, to come together, to try to work together so that we can really achieve the goal of eradication. I think also the last point I want to mention is about the food security, the fight for food security itself. Some people think that it is just a question of economy, or it is a question of production. I think the right to food is today considered as one of the most important rights of human beings. It is about the dignity of people. You know, you can be poor, but poor to the extent that you cannot afford to have your meal. You cannot afford to feed your family. Is something which is really very difficult to accept in our time. That's why we think that this initiative comes at the right time when all the continent is talking about African Renaissance. Renaissance means we are going to have a new start. A new start should begin with food security. And we hope that this opportunity will be seized by the leaders at the highest level in our continent to make the appropriate commitment, because it is not enough also to come up with technical solutions. We have been involved in the process of CAADP from the outset. We have contributed to the crafting of the CAADP document. We have participated also to the updating of CAADP through this companion document, because this is not the first time CAADP is being updated. So I think that this with new initiative, it will be possible really to enrich CAADP process, to complement with the missing element, so that we can, before 2025, as decided by the African Union Commission, we can be really in a continent where hunger will be just a very bad and a very long souvenir. I think this is what I wanted to say, Your Excellency, to start, but we are ready to go into details so that people can understand how important is this initiative. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Traore from FAO. And just to echo some of the sentiments that you were mentioning there, for colleagues to be aware that agriculture and food security is indeed a major priority in Africa and forms one of the major pillars and priority areas of the African Union Commission. Now, before we ask His Excellency, the the State Minister of Agriculture, I just want to remind colleagues that we are actually live on air. This press conference is being broadcast throughout Africa and throughout the world, and it is being streamed on the AU channels. So just to let everyone be aware, and also to welcome those of you who are joining us from home this afternoon. Right now, we now hand over to Mr. Wondirad Mandefro. He is the State Minister of Agriculture of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you. I would like to appreciate the partnerships that is created, that is formed to leverage the best practices and the success stories that we are having in Africa so that we can scale it up in order to achieve address food insecurity and particularly poverty in the Africa. Therefore, Africa Union chairing and organizing and having the ownership of this initiative at Africa-wide, and also FAO as a global partnership, as a global expertise in the food and agriculture within the UN. So this partnership is a real partnership involving Brazil and particularly the Lula initiative, where Ethiopia can actually provide the success stories and the way forward in order to achieve success and growth in agriculture, and thereby addressing food security and hunger in Africa. As Ethiopia, we believe that agriculture is the main engine of economy, and therefore all development in ventures has to be based on agriculture if we have to impact citizens, particularly addressing either poverty or even hunger in the country. And therefore the focus on agriculture has started long ago, and particularly with the launch of rural development policy and strategies 12 years ago. The concerted and comprehensive policies are put in place, and as a result, for the last 10 years, agriculture has been performing very in a fast pace, and thereby contributing to the overall economic growth in the country. For the past 10 years, the country has been growing successively on average of 10%, which makes Ethiopia as one of the fastest growing economies in not only in Africa but in the globe. Particularly for sustaining this growth, agriculture has played significant role. And moreover, because of majority of the people also live in the rural areas where the basis of economy at household or at community and at regional level is also agriculture, we have actually impacted significantly in improving livelihoods and also addressing poverty in the country. With the beginning of the Millennium Development Goal, poverty level in Ethiopia was 44%. Now we have successfully, within the last, particularly the achievements that were made in agriculture and the overall economy, we have reduced it to less than 26% now. And with the forecast that we are having, we are able to achieve a minimum of 22% of poverty, which actually make us that we will be able to achieve Millennium Development Goals. And this actually happens because of the comprehensive policies and strategies and the commitment that the government played to be able to empower citizens so that the productive capacity of the particularly smallholder farmers are being able to improve, and at the same time through extension or through providing extension service and comprehensive support to the rural economy in the country. And this is also coupled with extensive infrastructure development, which is a very important enabling factor for agriculture to grow. And this, because of the extensive diversity in the country and majority of the challenge that we are having in hunger and poverty is because of the degradation of natural resources. Our food security program mainly relies on addressing the root causes of food insecurity, which is basically the degradation of natural resources. Therefore, we have given high emphasis, and our safety net, particularly in the country, is based on the productive safety net, so that people and communities can contribute to rehabilitation of the natural to their environment, to restoration of natural resources, and as a result, this directly contributes to improving agricultural productivity. But at the same time, the challenge in terms of the food gaps and food insecurity can also be addressed through a uniquely crafted program to suit and to address the root causes of food insecurity in the country. And as a result, we have significantly improved, and millions of people have actually graduated coming out of the food insecurity. to reduce. Now we have achieved it, and now the challenge is now how to actually accelerate this food insecurity and making sure that all citizens of Ethiopia are able to achieve and address their food needs a minimum and also come out of poverty. Therefore, the productive safety net program, coupled with household asset program and also comprehensive extension and other agricultural development programs, are now the reasons to really transform the rural economy and the agriculture sector in the country. And therefore, it is possible. And we believe that the success actually paid in the last Horn of Africa, the drought, that it is possible to actually mitigate, even in the worst, in the highly affected areas of the pastoral communities, where all the basis for the livelihood of the community is more or less destroyed, but people can really sustain their livelihood without disrupting the overall community and the environment. Therefore, this program will now continue addressing and being able to accommodate the new developments and opportunities, and also to address the emerging challenges that we are having in environment, in the current climate change, global phenomena, and also local challenge that we are having in land, and also particularly with increased population in the rural areas. Therefore, the reason for success is, number one, is the commitment of the government to change the livelihood of the majority of the people in the rural area, number one. And commitment by itself is not enough. We need to have also comprehensive and the right policies and strategies in place. And the third is with the right commitment and also right policies. And this has to also coupled, and it has to be sustainable. It has to be sustainable so that capacities and implementation capacity can also improve through implementation of these programs. Therefore, those last 10 years are the success, and at the same time, as a country, we have really built a capacity to transform and to be able to change the natural resources that we have in agriculture, and also the empowerment of the communities and the people lived in agriculture have also built their own capacities in order to realize the potentials that they have, and also building on the successes and also on the challenges that we have passed through. This is what we have been contributing, and we have been also sharing to our brothers in Africa, and through the African Union, particularly in the last 4 years since we also launched our CAADP Compact, and we have really checked our policies whether they are compatible with CAADP, and we were successfully completed our CAADP process, so that we can speak and we can communicate among African states and African countries on the same level of policies and strategies, on the comprehensiveness of food security, the natural resource, and the market and agricultural development and research and extension areas. Therefore, this actually enabled us to communicate, to really share experiences on a continent level, and also on the sub-regional economic community areas. Therefore, now, as Dr. Modibo earlier just mentioned, particularly the previous challenge of Millennium Development Goal is to have people under poverty, and therefore now we are only remaining with 2 years to complete the Millennium Development Goal targets in 2015, and then what will be next afterwards will be to really address poverty and also to end hunger. Hunger has to be completed, and hunger is unacceptable, as everybody, and particularly our heads of states, have committed, and therefore this will be an initiative to complement the programs that we have in CAADP, and also to complement and to put a new target for us, so that we will not accept hunger in Africa. And we cannot accept, because it's not only just a word that we are claiming, but basically the infrastructure and the policies and the practices that we are at hand can really make sure that we can really achieve. And therefore, as our overall economy is also growing, and therefore we can also achieve this ending hunger in Africa in the coming decades. And let me also speak a little bit about Ethiopia. Particularly, we have also put short-term and also long-term strategies to reach middle-income country. And with the current pace of growth that we will only need 10 to 12 years to actually reach a middle-income country. By then we will be able, and we have to be able to address poverty and particularly hunger in Ethiopia. Because middle-income country, then it is unacceptable for us to live with hunger, and therefore we will be the vanguard country to actually share and also contribute through the African Union to contribute to other countries. And therefore we will be very happy to share our experiences and at the same time also to learn from other countries. Our policies and the successes and challenges that other countries have passed are a good lesson and a very important element for us to learn. Therefore, through Brazil's successful story, success story of ending hunger, particularly in the last decade, is a lesson for us to learn, and so that in Ethiopia we can customize and also implement in this strategy. And therefore, the coming decade will be a new challenge for us, a new challenge as we are emerging to reach a middle-income country. Therefore, the new challenge will be to, number one, to abandon and abolish hunger, and at the same time to immediately impact on poverty. Therefore, this high-level initiative is an opportunity for us. For Ethiopia, it's an opportunity in two ways. One is we would be very happy to learn the experiences of other fast-growing countries, particularly Brazil in the Latin America, and also the Asian counterparts, particularly China, Vietnam, and others, on building the capacity of the citizens, and also being able to achieve fast growth, and at the same time to transform the livelihoods of their citizens. And therefore, this is an opportunity, and we will be very happy to also share our experiences in the last decades that we have achieved in Ethiopia, which is based on agriculture, but at the same time is comprehensively in terms of infrastructure, in terms of other social sector investments that we are having in health, education, and others. Therefore, we are very happy to host this initiative also in Ethiopia, not only hosting the African Union, but also to really goes hand in hand with agriculture success story and also the experiences that we are having in Ethiopia. So I thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister Wondirad Mandefro. Just a reminder that this is a press conference that is taking place ahead of the high-level meeting of African and international leaders, and they will be discussing how to end hunger in Africa. And the theme for that particular meeting will be Toward African Renaissance, Renewed Partnership for Unified Approaches to End Hunger in Africa by 2025 within the CAADP framework. What we will do now is we will go into a question and answer session. As usual, if you have any questions, please indicate by raising your hand. If you are nominated to speak, please start by introducing yourself, the organization that you are representing, and then go into your question. We think that to be fair, to give everyone a chance, let us just ask one question per individual in the first round, and then if we have time after that, we can go into a second or third round. I have someone from CCTV, Ethiopian Television, and my brother here. So let us start with you, please, Groom.
Thank you very much. My name is Groom, CCTV. I have one question for any one of you. We understand that Africa should produce more food to curb the hunger problem at the moment as one of the solutions that you have indicated. Have you also considered, you know, sometimes it happens that in other parts of the continent there is a surplus production of food, and then again there is another one. This is the case of Ethiopia when hunger came to the country. By then, 20-something years ago, there was a good production in some part of the country, and the other one, they didn't have it. So have you ever thought of balancing this, you know, taking everything around? Like, for example, the Ethiopian ECX is a good example. So what's the plan with regards to making sure that the food produced in the continent is going all around the continent, related with integration issues as well? Thank you.
Seleshi?
Thank you very much. My name is Seleshi Damso from the Ethiopian Television. My first question is to the State Minister. As you have said, State Minister, Ethiopia has been enjoying double-digit economic growth over the past 10 years, for which agriculture has played the leading role. And the move is to increase productivity, especially at household level. So how is the government of Ethiopia doing to maintain that productivity? And is there any experience that Ethiopia can share to its African countries? My second question is to Dr. Abebe. These days, African countries do allocate their budget for other activities, but the focus now seems that agriculture needs a reasonable amount of budget for its development. So how is the African Union Commission pushing African countries to allocate a reasonable amount of their budget to develop agriculture so that they can fight hunger? And my last question is to Dr. Traore. As a UN organ, how is FAO doing in mobilizing relevant partners to end hunger in Africa by developing agriculture? Thank you very much.
My name is Meles Kacho, and my question is directed to you mentioned that millions have graduated from 13th program. Would you please be more mentioning the numbers? If that one of the program was that many don't graduate.
I think we will take those first three questions. Perhaps we start with you, Dr. Abebe.
Thank you so much. The first question regarding on how food which is located in a surplus area can be moved to a deficit area. To start with, CAADP has pillars, 4 pillars, and one of which technically is pillar 2. It deals with trade-related capacities, rural infrastructure, and so on. So it's not just production. We understand, and there are recent estimates, for example, for the amount of post-harvest loss. Some figures would even indicate up to 40% of the grains are lost. And that by itself would have really solved the food shortage in Africa. So we understand that it's not only a problem of lack of rural infrastructure for transporting food from where it is produced in surplus towards those where it is needed, but also the storage facilities and others, including the problem with markets. So what we are trying to do is we have a number of initiatives that complement this. We have to also look at CAADP together with other continental programs like PIDA, the Program on Infrastructure Development in Africa, which has a lot to respond to this kind of concerns, not just at the national level. We have a rural infrastructure initiative at the national level, but also to take advantage of regional opportunities into African trade. And this kind of initiatives, we have to take them together, not in isolation. Last year, we have organized a joint conference of Ministers of Agriculture and Ministers of Trade. And one of the people who we have invited to come and share experiences from real life, real work, was the former CEO of the Ethiopian Commodity Exchange, Dr. Eleni. She has spoken to the ministers, and of course there was a lot of appreciation and a lot of demand for experience sharing, and the Commission of the African Union was requested to facilitate this experience sharing. That is what we are trying to do with our colleagues in the Department of Trade and Industry. This is one of the things which we want to take up as part of this initiative. When we talk about ending hunger, it's not, as His Excellency the Minister and Dr. Traore have alluded, it's not just about production. You know, it's much more than that. Even though we know that most of the hungry people in Africa are actually those who are producing, the farmers, the pastoralists, and also the urban poor. We cannot address the problem of ending hunger with continuing to depend on external sources, either commercially or through food aid. We have to produce it ourselves. So we cannot underestimate the importance of self-reliance, producing enough. And we feel, and the evidence is very clear, that the potential is there to double production and productivity in Africa. We haven't even touched the figures. The productivity figures at the moment are barely 1/3 of what can be achieved. And there is a lot of potential. It's possible to do it. That's why the Minister and Dr. Traore were keeping underlining the importance of believing in oneself, that it is possible to eradicate hunger. It's not something impossible to do, given leadership, the right kind of leadership. We have knowledge. We cannot use lack of knowledge as an excuse. It's possible, and there is opportunity to learn from others. Well, the other point is, what is the African Union Commission has been doing to encourage member states to allocate an increasing proportion of their budget to agriculture. In 2003, when heads of state and government adopted CARIB as an African framework guiding action in Africa, they have committed themselves to allocating 10%, at least 10% of their national budget to agriculture. And this was supposed to have reached by 2008. And the target was using this kind of commitment and ownership to reach growth rate, an average growth rate in agriculture was 6% by 2012. What we do is we monitor, we follow up, we support them. And we regularly report on progress. We report which countries have allocated how much of their national budget to agriculture every year, and we make that public knowledge. We circulate it. We have several fora, including heads of state. And we report, we distribute documents. We encourage them to move towards a peer review. You know, this is a commitment that they have made themselves, and we expect them to live up to their commitments. And one of the things which we believe that this high-level meeting is going to come up with is a system of mutual accountability, so that I mean, it's not enough to say I'm going to do this, but there should be kind of accountability system to check and also see where we stand in terms of making progress, and where the other areas needing further improvement. So we are doing a lot in that area. It's not enough, but we will do more. If you may consider it, it's like naming and shaming. You know, we report, we produce it. Ethiopia is amongst the rising stars, about 16%, the minister can correct me, of the national budget is being allocated to agriculture. But we are also at the moment refining the instruments. When we say 10% to agriculture, which are the focal areas that this 10% should be allocated? You can establish a rural health system and you say, I have allocated, this is also part of it. You know, there are a lot of confusions. But also we want to build a comparability figure that can be used amongst all the member states of the African Union. Sorry for taking much of the time, but I needed to elaborate on some of them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Dr. Traore?
Thank you, Wayne. I think I have two questions. I will start with the second one about what FAO is doing to mobilize partnership to end hunger in Africa. I think FAO's mandate is really, this is central to FAO mandate. As you know, FAO is a knowledge institution. We are not generating all the new knowledge, but we are aware of the knowledge that has been generated in different places, be in the research system, be in other countries. So that's why our program of capacity building is one of the most important program in FAO. And all our teams in decentralized offices are doing this capacity building in different African countries. We are also trying to encourage the exchange of experience between different parts of Africa. Let me give you just one example. You know that in West Africa there is a regional economic community called CIRS, which is dealing with drought resilience building, which is dealing also with food security issues. In East Africa, we have IGAD, which is dealing with similar things. But you won't believe me, but these two organizations were not talking to each other, unfortunately. I am not blaming them for that, because there are good reasons for that. But for the last 2 years, we have been working with the two regional economic communities in West Africa, our office in Accra, and in East Africa, the office here in Addis Ababa, to bring these people together so that they can exchange their experience. They can discuss among things that are really common to the two sub-regions. We had last year here in Addis Ababa this Share Fair event organized to make sure that different players in the two regions can exchange experience and also can learn from each other. The second aspect is the international knowledge, how to bring the international knowledge to African continent. In this area also, FAO is very, very active through our South-South cooperation program. I think Ethiopia is well aware of this program. I think 2 months ago, with His Excellency, we had the opportunity to meet about 30 Chinese technicians and experts that have arrived to Ethiopia for 2 years, and we have posted them in different places, in 4 places in the regions. They are working directly with the technical people in the field. This is just one example, but in fact, this South-South cooperation is a very wide program for FAO. And before the high-level meeting itself, we had organized a workshop called the Pre-High-Level Meeting Workshop, where we have brought on board not only expertise from different corners of Africa, but also from Brazil. We had a team from Brazil that came to share their experience of zero hunger in Brazil, which is one of the most successful experience of ending hunger in a country. You know, Brazilian experience is about lifting about 20 million people out of poverty and hunger in less than 10 years. Another example, which is very successful, is the Chinese experience. And we managed also to get some people from China here at this pre-high level meeting to share their experience, how from a legal point of view, from an institutional point of view, how Africa can learn from the Chinese experience. The same for Vietnam, and so on and so on. I think this is really something very much appreciated in countries. It is not about telling people what to do or how to do it, but it is about telling people how others have successfully resolved the same type of problems you are facing today. I think this is really something important, and we keep working in this area, and we hope that the high-level meeting itself will contribute to expanding this program. The second question I would like to make a contribution is about this complementarity between different regions. Of course, in Africa we have different types of ecological zone which are complementary to each other. People living in Sahel or people living in the Horn of Africa do not have the same potential as people living in coastal area. I think it is important for us to ensure that where there is a surplus, this surplus can be moved to the places where there is a deficit. That's why we are talking about unified approach. It is not just about a policy in the agricultural sector. It is a policy which embraces not only the agricultural sector, but also the health sector, the trade sector, the water sector, the sanitation sector, and so on and so on. And I think African Union has got a very important initiative called BIAT, Boost Inter-African Trade. I think this is something very, very important. And when we talk about unifying approach, it is about bringing on board people involved in the trade, people involved in different aspects of phytosanitary or sanitary issues, bringing on board people involved in the production sector, people involved in the trade sector. What can be done to facilitate their work? What can be done to make sure that African farmers can really take advantage of their surpluses when there is a surplus? And also, places and countries in deficit can also take advantage of the production and productivity of their neighbors. I think this is something very, very important, and food security is also about that. Multi-sectoral approach, but also bringing different types of players around the table so that they can discuss and they can agree on the best solutions to avail more food, to produce more food, to trade more food, and eventually also to improve the utilization of food. Why? I will stop here.
Thank you so much. We'll have our responses from His Excellency the Minister.
Thank you, Ms. Wayne, and also thank you for the questions, and I will try to be as brief as possible. Concerning the issues of particularly the safety net program graduation in Ethiopia, since the beginning of the program, we have, particularly in the last few years, we have graduated more than 2.3 million from the safety net program. Although this is less than what is anticipated or planned in the program, we could have liked much more, and the environment and the enabling factor to graduate from this program would have been much higher. But since there was lots of learning curves that in the program to provide comprehensive support for those food insecure households, and also building the capacity to be able to support and comprehensively address the issues, and now the graduation speed have actually accelerated, especially in the last 2 years, and then we'll anticipate more, particularly within the growth and transformation plan, more households and to graduate from this program. The question, the other is what is being done to maintain the growth in agriculture, since it also contributes for the double digit of overall economy. Basically, the major challenge of agricultural production system in Ethiopia is low productivity. So we are doing to address this productivity challenge. Number one is technological and also capacity building of the households. or the farmers, smallholder farmers, and we are now intensifying the support, and particularly the extension system, and be able to provide decentralized and area-specific challenge to address in terms of soil fertility and other technological or better improved varieties in terms of crops, and particularly the high emphasis also given for livestock, which is directly linked to the natural resources management, and provide comprehensive support in terms of health and marketing and breed improvement comprehensively. Therefore, lots of measures and interventions are now underway to really address this productivity challenge from a production perspective. The other high priority areas that we are also pursuing is small scale irrigation activities. We have been investing a lot, and particularly in almost throughout the whole country. Now smallholder farmers are engaged extensively in small scale irrigation wherever there is a potential, and particularly since last year now there is a very aggressive movement to have each farm household to have at least one alternative of water resources, either to complement the major crops that they are doing, or to have a double crop through irrigation activities. Therefore, we are also intensifying small scale and other kind of irrigation, mainly to address or to provide small holder farmers other income and other production system. The other issue is we are also approaching through value chain approach, and many of the major commodities in terms of cereals, pulses and export commodities or cash crops we are now clustering these commodities so that we'll be able to provide systematic support through specialization of commodities within the suitable agroecologic areas. Therefore, this will enable us to address the technologies, capacity, and also address value addition of even commodities, so that we really have comprehensive capability in the rural areas. And therefore, we are targeting comprehensively, and the other infrastructure developments that we are having extensively, like universal road access to connect each village or each kabale to the major capital of the Warada. This is basically improving access to market, and as a result this will also improve basically inputs and at the same time output marketing. And also cooperatives are being addressed as a major strategic area, because this will also support basically in addressing market and other input areas. Therefore, comprehensive strategies, and based on the challenge that we are having, and also the best practices that we really have, so that comprehensively it will address productivity issues at farm households. The other wing that we are also having is the commercial agriculture, both in intensive and large scale. This is also taken as a priority to complement and also to provide additional growth pillars in agriculture through the horticulture, livestock, value addition, and also outgrower scheme, to mention a few.
Thank you so much. Thank you, our panelists, for those answers. I think that we are running a bit short of time, so if we don't have any urgent questions that are burning, perhaps we will adjourn this particular press conference. And so let me thank you all very much. I see no hands going up. So I want to thank you all very much, colleagues from the media, colleagues from the African Union Commission, from the FAO, for being with us, and colleagues from the government of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. Let me just also remind you that the actual meeting that we've been discussing today will take place on the 30th of June and the 1st of July. So all colleagues from the media are invited to attend that particular meeting. And we've heard today from our principals discussing not just the theory of providing food, but also the practical experience from the Minister of Ethiopia, telling us about how continental policies are being put in place in order to advance the cause of food security. So please join us again on the 30th of June. Let me finally thank Dr. Abebe Haile Gabriel, the Director of Rural Economy and Agriculture at the African Union Commission, Dr. Modibo Traore, the Sub-Regional Coordinator for Eastern Africa and representative of the FAO to the African Union, the ECA, and to Ethiopia. And finally, a big thank you to His Excellency Mr. Wonderad Mandefro, the State Minister of Agriculture right here in Ethiopia. Thank you so much.